Amy. I'm one of the owners of North Shore College Consulting. And every February, we work with families who are starting to feel the weight of junior year. Not because anything is wrong, but because this is the moment when college admissions starts to feel real. If you're the parent of a junior, you may be wondering, are we doing enough? Are we behind? Should we be doing more right now? So today I'm going to slow this down for you. I want to talk about what actually matters junior year, what doesn't deserve as much attention as you think, and how to approach this year with intention, not with panic. The goal here isn't to do everything, it's to do the right things in the right order. Junior year math for the reasons that most families hear. It's not because students need to be perfect, and it's not because they need to suddenly do more. Junior year matters because it shows trajectory. Colleges are looking at how students handle rigor, whether their effort and engagement throughout the years, and whether their interests are deepening over time. What they're not looking for is exhaustion, panic, or a last minute scramble to check boxes. And February specifically is a turning point. It's early enough to be intentional about your choices, but late enough that your choices really start to matter in the admissions process. The biggest mistake we see every February is students trying to add more instead of choosing better. More activities, more tests, more pressure, more classes, but more isn't the same as meaningful. Junior year is not about stacking, it's about direction. Direction in academics, in extracurriculars, in testing, and in planning. When students have direction, everything else becomes much clearer. So let's talk about academics first, because this is where nuance really matters. Junior year grades matter because they're the most recent, most rigorous academic data that the colleges will have. For most colleges, what they're looking for is strong performance, consistency in grades and in rigor, and appropriate challenge. But for the most selective colleges, the Ivy League and Ivy like schools, the bar is even higher. At these schools, it's generally expected that successful applicants are earning mostly straight A's in the most rigorous curriculum available at their high school. That usually means taking advantage of AP classes, honors classes, IB courses, dual enrollment, or any other type of advanced courses offered through the high school. Here's the important part, though. And this is where contexts are always reviewed in the context of their own high school. A student at a high school that offers dozens of AP and honors classes is not being evaluated the same as a student at a high school that only offers a handful of this type of class. Colleges will not penalize a student for not taking courses that simply aren't available to them. But if a high school does offer significant rigor every year and a student consistently opts out of taking those classes, that will make them less competitive at the most selective colleges. This isn't about pressure and it's not about chasing prestige. It's about alignment between opportunity and preparation. February is a good moment to look honestly at current course rigor and how the student is managing it, and whether senior year, next year's course choices reflect both challenge and sustainability. Perfection isn't the goal, but for the most selective colleges, strong performance in the strongest curriculum available is often the baseline expectation. And understanding that early helps families plan thoughtfully instead of scrambling later. Academics show how a student performs in the classroom, but extracurriculars, colleges learn who a student is outside of it. For most colleges, what admissions officers are looking for is depth, leadership, and genuine engagement. That usually means a small number of activities sustained over time with increasing responsibility, impact, and leadership. They are not looking for a long list of clubs where a student shows up occasionally but isn't meaningfully involved. Depth matters way more than value. Leadership matters more than title, and passion matters more than optics. Now, for the most selective colleges, the conversation shifts slightly. In addition to depth and leadership, these schools are often looking for what we call level one type activities. Level one activities are experiences where student is working at an advanced or pre-professional level, creating something original, conducting original research with a college professor, building or leading an initiative with real world impact, or contributing meaningfully beyond their high school community. Examples might include independent or mentored research and published research papers, competitions at a high level, starting or scaling an organization or an initiative impact, substantive internships or entrepreneurial work. These activities matter at the most selective colleges because they help admissions officers see how a student might contribute to an academic and intellectual community on campus. That means every student needs to do a research project or a nationally recognized program. It does mean that for students aiming at the most selective schools, their activities often need to show a higher level of initiative, depth, and originality than original school based involvement alone. Here's the key takeaway: different colleges are looking for different things. Most colleges want to see commitment, they want to see leadership, they want to see passion developed over time. But again, the most selective colleges are looking for all of that, plus evidence of differentiation and advanced engagement. February is a great time to step back and ask, does this student's activities align with the types of colleges on their list? Not in a performative way, but in a thoughtful, realistic one. Because the goal isn't to do more, it's to do what makes sense for this student and this set of colleges. As students start to clarify who they are and what they care about, the next natural question becomes where they might actually feel like a good fit. The most important reason for a student to visit a college, whether in person or virtually, is to understand fit. Visits help students answer questions like, can I see myself here? What kind of learning environment do I want? What feels energizing and what doesn't? That clarity matters far more than trying to impress a college by showing up. At the same time, it's important to understand that visits can also play a role in demonstrated interest. Some colleges track it, some don't. But many colleges do want to know that a student has taken the time to truly learn about their institution, not just add it to a list. That does not mean students are expected to travel all over the country. Colleges understand financial limitations, geographic constraints, and scheduling realities. This is where virtual visits and online programming can become incredibly valuable. Virtual information, department presentations, and admissions events, virtual tours are all legitimate ways for students to show interest when in person visits aren't possible. What matters most is not how a student visits, but that they engage thoughtfully. February is often a popular time to visit, especially because of President's Weekend, when many high school students have a long weekend. It's a great opportunity, but it's also a very busy one. On holiday weekends like this, campus tours and information sessions fill up quickly, often months ahead of time. So, if a student is hoping to visit in person during that time, planning and registering as early as possible is very important. The takeaway here is simple. Visits are about learning first and foremost. Demonstrated interest is a secondary benefit, not the primary goal. And thoughtful engagement, whether in person or virtual, is far more meaningful than simply checking a box. Once students begin to understand what they're looking for in a college environment, standardized testing decisions often become the next question families start asking. February is often when standardized testing starts to feel louder. ACT or SAT, retest or stop, one more try or move on. The most important thing to understand is this testing should support the application, not dominate it. Strong testing can help, but excessive testing really changes outcomes. February is a good time to take a step back and make a plan. That might mean deciding which test fits the students better, identifying how many sittings make sense, and setting a clear stopping point. For some students, testing will be a strength, but for others, it will be one part of a much bigger picture. What matters most is being intentional, not reactive. Taking tests repeatedly without a clear strategy often adds stress without adding value. As students start making decisions about visits and testing, questions about demonstrated interests often come up. And this is an area where a little clarity goes. Demonstrated interest is one of those topics that often sounds more complicated than it needs to be. The first thing to know is this: some colleges care about demonstrated interest, some don't. And for the colleges that do, they're not looking for constant outreach or performative engagement. What they care about is whether a student has taken the time to genuinely understand the school. That might look like attending an information session or campus visit, participating in a virtual or in person department program, joining an academic event, or engaging with any other sort of programming that the college offers. At this stage, especially in February of junior year, demonstrated interest should feel exploratory, not strategic, not scripted. Students don't need to prove anything. They're simply learning about the college. What does this school value? What does this environment feel like? And what does it align with what I'm looking for? Thoughtful engagement now leads to clearer decisions later. And when demonstrated interest does matter, that clarity really shows. Once families understand how interest works, it's often helpful to take a step back and talk about what juniors don't need to be doing right now. This part matters. Juniors do not need to have a final college list right now, know their intended major, chase prestige, or do everything all at once. They don't need urgency, they need clarity. And clarity comes from making thoughtful, manageable choices over time. I want to leave you with this. Junior year isn't about doing everything early or getting every decision exactly right. It's about building momentum in a thoughtful, sustainable way. When a student focuses on strong academics and the level of rigor, meaningful involvement, and activities that they truly care about, and learning more about what fits them step by step, they put themselves in a strong position without burning out. February doesn't need urgency, it needs clarity. And clarity comes from understanding what matters now and what can wait. If you're navigating junior year right now, you're not behind. You don't need to rush. You just need to keep moving forward.